Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Kip Wright, CEO of Talent Path, to discuss how technology can help companies build a more diverse workforce and how Talent Path allows clients to strategically build and staff their technical teams. Kip, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you, Jill. Glad to be here.
So tell our audience about Talent Path. How did you start and what did you do?
Yeah, glad to do that. So first and foremost, let me explain a little bit about what Talent Path is. It is, in fact, a unique workforce solution that allows our clients to strategically build and staff their technical teams with highly qualified, specifically experienced, and newly trained talent. In the world of IT staffing, where many of our competitors are talent brokers, we've actually become talent builders. And I think that's what makes our solution somewhat unique. The offering was built around a pretty simple premise. And in the technical field, and certainly prior to the COVID crisis, this was overwhelmingly significant. The US economy, both commercial and private and public sectors, were creating such a significant demand for technical talent that the supply was far less than what the demand needed. And in fact, we were seeing universities graduating somewhere between 85,000 MIS and CIS degreed resources, and the need was being created at somewhere around 200,000 new IT positions. And so clearly there wasn't enough. Foreign work visa programs like the H-1B program were certainly helping to address that, but even that was only allowing up to 85,000. So the gap continued to widen over the years. So we looked at that and we said, well, we could approach this from one or two ways. We could continue to spend more money on job boards, on recruiters, on offshore sourcing centers, all of those things which we have done as an IT staffing company. But we would continue to be part of the problem, or we could be part of the solution. And that's really what became of the idea behind building Talent Path. And for us, Talent Path and the approach of a model in which you go out and you actually hire resources straight out of college or newly graduated resources. You invest in them throughout a 3 to 4 month technology immersion period, and then put them on a longer term staffing is very different and much more cost intensive from an investment standpoint than what you would otherwise see with the traditional model. So for us, it was unique. It was a bit of a risk, but we knew that cutting against the grain was part of what we wanted to do. And then the last thing I would say there is we at Genuine and Talent Path have a very specific purpose, and that purpose is enriching lives by connecting talent. We've been able to help our clients very profoundly, connecting them with the right level of talent for years. We've been able to enrich the lives of our consultants by helping them to find those job opportunities. But with Talent Path, we could actually go a step further, which is to literally launch the technology careers of individuals who might not otherwise have had that path in their past.
So as a result of COVID-19, a lot of these newer technologies have been accelerated, cloud for sure. But one of the silver linings to that is these newer technologies can also help companies build more diverse workforces. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the COVID crisis, it's so acute and it came on so suddenly that it's forced our economy into what I would call the largest remote work experiments in history, right? Mm-hmm. And in doing that, it certainly is taxed technology, but it's actually forced a lot of companies to look very differently at how they engage their workforce, how they communicate with their workforce, what they look for in terms of their workforce. And in doing so, frankly, it opened them up to their willingness to actually engage resources beyond the traditional kind of in the building environment. And so when that happened, what you found is that they actually were able to open the aperture in terms of where they could find talent, and sourcing for a broader pool of talent, you begin to look at not only more available resources, but frankly more diverse resources. And I think there's a big piece that technology played in that. Second thing I would say is there certainly has been an awakening across the commercial and private sector into the importance of having a diverse workforce and having a workforce that represents both the society that they operate within and within the communities that they live and that their customers live, but also in terms of having a staff that actually reflects the customers that they service, so that their perspectives, so that their products become much more broadly available and much more broadly usable by the customers that they use. And then I guess the last thing I would say is, even within Talent Path, that's been something that's been a very important driver for us. In fact, when we created the Talent Path offering, we recognized that we had the opportunity to do a couple of things. One is that we needed to go out and find really gritty students that would be willing to take the path, make the investment over a long period of time to allow us to make that same investment back in them, which often led us to finding students that were more predominantly first and second generation college graduates. We felt there was a grittiness about that. Secondly, we realized because we were hiring that talent very specifically to train for our customers, we could even be more purposeful with that. And in doing that, we've been very specific in trying to disproportionately hire both minorities and gender balance in the IT world in general. We're talking, 17 to 18% of those of that talent is female, and in fact, in the leadership side, it's probably even closer to 10 or 11%. So if we could go out and disproportionately hire females or minorities, we could help our customers not only find technical talent they couldn't otherwise find, but we could actually help build a very diverse workforce intentionally over time.
And Kip, with just a minute to go here, what lessons have you learned during the work from home era, both individually and as the CEO of a company?
Yeah, so COVID forced us into a very different paradigm in a very short period of time. And I've always been a believer in an old Henry Ford mantra, which is, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. We chose the approach that says, I think we can. But that's not to say it didn't force us to do things very differently. And I think we found throughout this that actually gave us some very different benefits. The first is that it forced us to be very specific with our job responsibilities, with the roles, and frankly, with the expectations, which allows our employees to operate very differently and to operate with intention to know what they're being held accountable to. But two, we actually saw productivity increase tremendously. And I've talked to many of my peers, I think they all agree with that. And three, because we realigned those expectations, it allows our workforce to be more flexible. Now they're focused on what they need to achieve during the day, not what they need to fill their 8 to 5 hours with. Last, we focused heavily in terms of shifting our approach on communication. We thought we were over communicating, and in fact, what we found was we were communicating now just the right amount. Those are some of the lessons that we found throughout this crisis.
All right, Kip, great insight. Thanks so much for joining us on Trade Talks.
Glad to be here.
All right, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.